Welcome to another episode of the Vitamin C's podcast. I am your host, Tim Sheils, joined by Wayne Breezie Brown. Before we get into it, we are a member of the CLNS Media Network, which is sponsored and powered by FanDuel, the official sports wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. So, checking in today, Celtics are going to be taking on the Houston Rockets this evening. But before we get into that, we do need to talk about some recent Celtics news applying to the Celtics coaching staff. Damon Stoudamire is signing with Georgia Tech, going to be their head coach officially. Wayne, what are your immediate thoughts? First off, how are you doing? I'm just jumping right into the news, but
Hey man,
how you
hey,
doing, man?
there's nothing wrong with just jumping into it. I call it getting down to the nitty gritty, but I'm doing really
Mhm.
good, Tim. It's good to be back. This is it depends on how you want to take the news, but I will say this for Damon Stoudamire. This is great news for him. He becomes a head coach of the Yellow Jackets over there at Georgia Tech. This is great news for him. He'll be able to control and do things that he wants and help develop some of these young guys, which is kind of what he does here with the Boston Celtics. He helps develop certain players and he has different ties, from the Portland area and things like that. But I think this is a great move for him business wise, great move every way. It's a great move. Now for the Celtics, this can be somewhat uh, a, a curveball or a wrinkle in time, if how you want to say it, because you're losing your lead assistant head coach. Now I'm not saying there's not anyone else that can step up, but we've also saw Damon Stoudemire, be the head coach for a couple of games that Joe Mazzulla was out, and so did fairly well with the team and has great rapport with the guys on the team. And so I'm hoping, at a tough critical time like this, it doesn't cause a ripple in the locker room with the players, with the team, things like that. And it's almost playoff time, so I'm not sure how quick he'll go to Georgia and join his new venture. But it's just a weird timing for it. I think that's for me. That's what's throwing me off. But I'm definitely happy for Damon Steinmeier.
Yeah, like you said, it's a great opportunity. It is definitely weirder timing though, because what happens now? Do they play out the rest of the season? Does he leave like immediately, or is it something that happens, as things wrap up at the end of the year, however far the Celtics may get, once things, have a bow on it, he goes ahead and joins Georgia Tech. Does that happen? Because it is this kind of weird in between. I know this happens. I know you're a big NFL guy, obviously, with all the Niners stuff back there too. But sometimes this happens, and it's happened before with other teams in the NBA where guys get, a team gets knocked out of the playoffs or a team is deep in the playoffs, and all of a sudden one of the assistants or a coordinator or something like that ends up getting like a coaching gig elsewhere. And so they just end up finishing out the rest of that run and go on to join their new team whenever things wrap up. But it's tough because now you're looking at this roster, right? And you've got an experienced guy, Damon Stoudemire, who's going to be going away for a great opportunity, like for sure. And I think it's awesome. Like you should take that opportunity because I think now that's kind of a foothold for him to go back to the NBA level at some point down the line to become an actual like NBA head coach full on. And I think he was in the mix there before everything happened with Joe. But the big thing was he came on to be Ime's assistant. And now you kind of look at the rest of that staff, right? Like, is there going to be some kind of exodus like once things kind of come to a close this offseason? Because most of these guys came in for Ime. Damon's got the Portland ties with Ime as well. Right now, it looks like Ben Sullivan's probably going to be like the lead head assistant unless they go out and they find somebody else. And there's plenty of good options out there, but I feel like they'll probably just roll with Ben. Um, but how does that change how they approach the offseason? Are you looking at more coaches leaving? Does it mean like you're kind of retooling Joe's staff? Where does that kind of lead things? But right now, I think in the overall scheme, it's just sort of it's something to keep an eye on. Like I don't know if it's going to really impact anything long term, but in the meantime, it's just kind of like an interesting little wrinkle to what they're already going through as a team. They started to turn things around recently. They put together 2 straight wins, so that's obviously really, really good, especially when you consider that rough stretch that they were going through. But one interesting thing I think going back to Damon Stoudemire for a sec, You know who he actually had a really good working relationship with? Marcus Smart.
See, that's look, Marcus Smart, savvy veteran. I'm glad that they had a great relationship. This is probably what helped Marcus Smart just be more of a. Uh, I would say he's a matured basketball player, but he still definitely tries to do things, uh, you know, to test the waters a little bit. Hence the last game in Atlanta.
Got a little tense, didn't it?
It's just a little bit, and it was so toward the end of the game. But I commend Smart. Here's why, and I don't know if we're alluding to that as of right
Oh,
now.
we
But
absolutely are alluding to the ejection.
and here's why I commend him. If you didn't watch the game, you saw that things were starting to turn for the Atlanta Hawks, and Smart had to find or figure out a way to kind of like put something on pause. Now, I don't think Woody. Let's talk about the kick, right? Was it a kick? Was it? And we're
I
talking
think
about
so.
Trey Young. It was a kick with the leg, right? And it was intentional. And Marcus Smart just wanted to make him known. Make like, look, listen, dude, you kick me with your leg. No, I'm saying whatever, whatever, whatever. The takedown, though, it was the issue. I think that's what got him the ejection. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
Well, part of it for me was I think like John Collins kind of like walked back into them and they were tied up and so they just got knocked over. So I don't know how much of that is like a takedown. He did get into his face, which I say like would get you a tech. I think that for sure would get you a technical. I don't know if it would change anything from there, like moving forward. But I think overall, like it was just sort of one of those things where I know that they've got a history. Like there's been altercations before. There was a whole instance where Smart got tripped up by Trey Young in a previous game. I want to say last year or the year before. So like there is like a history there, and Trey's been known to get on people's nerves. Just go ahead and ask the entire city of New York. Poor Knicks fans are still licking their wounds from that playoff series, but he's kind of like that instigator, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, Smart's also very much an instigator and he's not afraid to get physical. But when like an offensive player does something like that, especially to Marcus Smart, like you're gonna get a response. And in that moment, yeah, I tend to agree with you. Like that puts a spark underneath the rest of that team. And I think that's sort of what the Celtics needed to do to close it out. Like that happened in what, like the last like 2 minutes of the game, pretty much.
Yeah, for some reason, they played well the whole game,
Hmm.
right? They were moving the ball. Jason Tatum was just having a night. Guys were hitting their shots. Interesting that we didn't see any Grant Hill. I mean, Grant. God dang it, Grant Will. I don't get it. I
you're
don't get
you're
it,
caught on
Tim.
that.
And here's what's
It's a
funny.
running thing.
At the end of the game, because I was watching it on the NBA app. At the end of the game, guess what? There was an interview with Grant Hill and Jason Tatum. Like at the end of the game, no lie. But no, seriously, like Grant Will, I don't remember him getting any burn in that game. I don't even know if he played any minutes.
I think it was a
Uh,
DNP.
okay, so I brought that up to say like going forward, and I know we were talking about the Smarts ejection, but we're gonna eventually get into why the Celtics may be playing a little bit better. And I like Grant Williams, especially when he's doing the things that he's asked to do, and he's not second guessing himself and things like that. I'm okay if he makes mistakes, if he's hustling and things like that. I'm okay with those mistakes, but these turnovers that aren't just from him, they're from all the players from the top echelon all the way down. Like they got to figure out a way to limit those turnovers because that's how the Atlanta Hawks were able to even create some type of a run toward the end of that game, which kind of brought the score, I believe, within five. And then the Marcus Smart thing kind of happens, and then it's a spark, and then it's just like Tatum, and then it's just like we're gonna close this chunk out. You know what I'm saying? So I'm cool with the nail biter games. I'm cool with a lot of the stuff that we see from the Celtics, but sometimes I feel they get in their own way. And, I don't know if that's a player thing, a coaching thing, a mixture of both. But, the upcoming game they have against who they play next?
Houston Rockets.
Against the Rockets, which should be not an easy game, but you know what I'm trying to say. It should be a team that they can beat.
Easier, yeah,
You know
for
what I'm trying
sure.
to say. I don't like to say
Yeah.
that any game is easy, but
Mhm.
they also play down to their competition. And the Celtics do let me ask you this question. Do they need to always have their foot on the gas? do they need to show that they're this dominant team this late in the season with the number 1, 2, 3 seed kind of like on the lock? Because that's where they're gonna finish 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
I'm
somewhere
pointing
in that mix, right?
yeah,
I mean, they've got a good chance to move back into one
to
just
1.
because the Bucks are facing the Suns, and then I think they're facing the Kings as well. Like they're facing a couple really good teams in a row. So I think there's a chance if Milwaukee slips up a little bit. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, if Milwaukee slips up a little bit, then there's going to be an opportunity for the Celtics to slip in there. But I think if they're trying to maintain health, then you gotta play hard for, like, at least, like, 3 quarters. You get
gotcha.
through 3 quarters, like, with your foot on the gas, you got a good healthy lead, at least against a team like Houston. Like, if it's like the Bucks or another, like, playoff team, like, if you were going against the Knicks or even, like, a team like the Pacers, like, you wanna make sure you've got a real comfortable lead before you start emptying the benches. I love that they were able to do that against Portland. That made a huge difference, I think, for the Celtics in terms of getting Tatum off the floor. Al Horford only played like 24 minutes in that game. So being able to do that's going to help them. But losing grip of the rope in these games can really really burn you down the line because even if let's say you're not in play for first or let's say you are and you are in that mix battling between these seeds and you manage to pull off the first seed but you burn yourself out in the process, then it doesn't even matter that you got first seed because like health is tantamount. I don't think it matters wherever they land. Like in my mind, like it's not like the Warriors where they need home court because they are an awful road team. Like I'm pretty confident the Celtics can go into anybody's building and take at least one game. But what are your thoughts?
I I don't know, man. I just want them to close out the season playing, well Celtics basketball. And what does that mean? Just them moving the ball, looking like an offense that flows. It's funny listening to Scal uh say, all right, man, they're gonna go down there and they're gonna get 5 passes on this possession, and then it was a turnover. I think it was like a ISO play, and it was just he was like, okay. And then the next time he like, all right, we're gonna get 3 to 4 passes on this next possession. I'm
It's
gonna
the
lower that
kiss of death. If he's predicting it, it's the kiss of death.
I
Like
just
just you're
think it's
screwed.
funny that we think that's how we should play because if we do play like that, like everybody just does well. It's just when we go ISO mode, or like if the issue is when Tatum's not on the floor, the offense gets a little bit stagnant.
Oh yeah.
Jalen Brown decides to go commando, and it's just like, dude, continue rising, JB, as the playmaker. Like he's shown that he has grown in the element of playmaking over the last several games, probably since he started wearing his mask. And so it's just like,
Weird, right?
yeah, it's weird.
I
And
I wonder if he just became more careful with, like, possessions because he was afraid of losing it. So there's actually, like, a mask that you can wear when you're learning to, like, dribble and stuff, and it's a mask that has, like, a guard on the underside of it, right? So you
uh-huh.
can't see down. So, like, if you were dribbling, you can't see, like, where you're dribbling, and so it blocks your vision, so you get used to not looking down at the dribble.
So there's
So
science to this. That's
so
crazy.
I don't know how it ties in with him in the mask, but, like, I feel like that might be part of it where he's, like, being extra careful with, like, his dribble and his possessions. He's not been perfect, but, like, considering he's been wearing a mask, he's looking pretty damn good.
I love Jalen Brown. There's only two
Jalen a Brown
things.
appreciation moment. I love
There's
JB.
only two things I'm gonna ask my cousin to do in the off season: shoot 8,000 billion free throws, and I don't even think he needs to learn how to dribble. I think he's so fast in his head that he's trying to make the move before he secures the rock. It's almost like a wide receiver catching the ball, like, oh, I'm gonna catch the
Catch the
ball
ball before you start taking
before
off.
you start exactly, and so that's kinda like JB when he gets into, like, it's 7, 8, 9 seconds on the clock, and it's my turn to kinda, like, do something with the ball. He's already taken off, so in his head, he's making the play, but he forgets that they got quick hands. And so that's the only thing. Those are the only 2 things. Like, other than that, like I said, I feel like over the last several games, I've watched his playmaking ability, like, really upgrade, and it's really cool to see this young gentleman add that to his tool belt, right? Because that's the one thing he's missing. He's a slasher, he's a scorer, he can shoot the three. Like that's what Jalen Brown does. He's gonna get you buckets. I don't care if he takes 100 shots, he's gonna try to get you 40 points a night. And that's kind of like what he does. And you have one player like that, and then when you look at Jason Tatum, he can do that, but he's also learning how to get everybody else involved. So when Tatum's not on the floor, I want to see Brown continue to trend upwards in that playmaking trajectory. And then you get what we talk about, the ball handling, right? Like this is what we're starting to see. And it was like when Al Horford came back off of his, not back to back night, you saw immediately that the Celtics were better because we had this conversation about the double bigs. And it's just like maybe the double bigs aren't what we want to do going forward, coming down the stretch when you kind of like shrink the rotation a little bit, because if Al Horford can handle the ball at the five and bring the ball up the court and make a play, and then you got your other four people that can do exactly the same thing, that's what's causing these defenses, is giving them fits. The only issues that we have when you do that is you're super small underneath the rim and you're not going to get too many either second chance points. And that's where we get killed, right? Because like when you go back to the Atlanta game, Tim, the only reason why Atlanta stayed in the game, it wasn't because they can hit their shots. I mean, what's the kid that always does Sadiq Bay, whatever his name is? I feel like
Yeah, who's now in Atlanta, which is I'm still getting
he
used to.
always has a good game against the Celtics for some reason. Like
Always.
it's the one team he circles on his calendar and says, "I'm going to
4
have a
of
good
7
game."
from 3 that night, like, just
It's ridiculous. And so I was saying that to say this, like the Celtics just have to, figure out how to continue to move the ball with those five playmakers that they have on the court at one time. So more ball handling from all five. The only issue is what happens with the rebounds? Because we watched us get out rebound again. Like I think it was they showed a stat, and I don't have it in front of me, but at one point during the game, it was like they had like 17 like second chance shots, and they were scoring right off of them. So that's 34 points at that time. 17 that would just put right back up and put right back in. And so that's kind of where the double bigs probably got to come back in. But I think the Celtics, we talked about this earlier on an episode, they're going to be just fine moving forward. They have a pretty decent road game schedule that I feel like they can handle. And they just got to continue doing the things playing Celtics basketball. It's kind of want to see it.
Yeah, and before we keep moving forward, because I do have a looking ahead, trying to look ahead at what is lurking in the playoff situation, like what's in the seeding, who they could potentially face. Are there any teams that concern you? There are a couple that concern me a little
Heck
bit.
yeah.
Um,
Like Miami.
Before we do, I am going to take care of some of the bills here, and I'm going to go ahead and plug our sponsor, FanDuel. Massachusetts, listen up. The wait is over. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is now live in Massachusetts, and new customers in Mass can get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at fanduel.com/Boston. Finally, you can bet on all your favorite sports teams, from the money line to point spreads to player props and more. For me personally, I'm not much of a game to game guy. However, I am looking at the Celtics and the Bruins to go to the distance, so I put myself a nice little parlay on both those teams, and here's hoping that hits. So, bet now on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Don't miss your chance to get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Visit fanduel.com/Boston and make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and present in MA. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued on non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Hope is here. GamblingHelplineMA.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Getting back to things, talking about looking ahead at the schedule, I am a little bit concerned about who might fall into those spots. We talked about seeding not being important. However,
Mm,
there's a couple teams, and I'm sure there's probably a little bit of overlap that we have in that regard. Looking ahead at the schedule and saying, all right, we've got X amount of games left. What's the standings looking like?
mm.
Because right now, it looks like you might either face the Knicks or the Heat or maybe the Hawks, but most likely it's looking like it's going to be either the Heat or the Hawks. Right now, the Heat are in seventh. So if you stay, in the 2 seed, you're gonna have Miami in a first round matchup. Right now, though, they're only 3 games over 500. They're 36 and 33 on the season. How do you feel about that?
Uh, Look, I like our matchup between the Hawks. I feel like, I mean, I like what they do against Trey Young. I mean, can he score from anywhere on the court for sure? But I like that our guards are bigger, and then they take him to the paint, try to get him in foul troubles early. So I actually like the matchup between the Hawks. I mean, I know they got those bigs down there that can get those offensive rebounds and Clint Capella. But I just like our matchups in the Hawks, and I expect to have Rob Williams back too. Like, you know what I mean? So like if we had to play them, I think I like the matchup. I do not want to play the Miami Heat in 7 games. I'm not saying that the Celtics won't win. I just don't want to go play that type of physical. First of all, it starts with the coaching. People don't give Spoelstra his props, but the dude is a so he was a Hall of Fame coach, man. And so it's just like he's already gonna come with that mentality. He knows what his rotation is gonna be. We've faced him before, we've done it before, and we always go the long mile. And I just don't think in the first round the Celtics want to go 7 games. They just don't. They don't want to burn themselves out. And I would try, I mean, it's not up to them. If they don't want to face the Hawks or the Heat, they got to finish in first. This is where I'm coming in and saying they need to go out there and handle their business on the road. And then they got what, few games at home, maybe 6 more games to play at home, if I'm not mistaken. They can, little luck on their side. They can get back into first, control their destiny, and play the worst seed, which would probably be would it be one of those 2 teams again? Or would it
Most likely, I mean, well, you also I keep forgetting, you've got the play-in sitting there right now.
it's just the Cleveland
Um,
Cavs, right?
so the Cavs are actually up at 4th. They're doing good.
Good.
Playing, you're looking at 10th right now is Chicago. Then you've got the Raptors, the Hawks, and the Heat. So those are the 4 playing teams that you're looking at right now.
So
I
I don't
mean,
wanna face Chicago either, Tim. I they're
yes and
those
no, right?
they're just I feel the matchup. It's the matchup and their mentality. They play us so much harder than they play any other team. They can lose every game on their schedule. They'll play the Celtics and they show up. They play more physical. They get up in our grill. All of a sudden, they hit all their shots. It's weird. It's weird watching us play Chicago. Chicago, the Knicks, and the Brooklyn Nets are those 3 teams that just play us tough in the East.
I would worry about the Raptors to a certain extent only because Nick Nurse is
Oh, he's
a
another one.
very good coach, but he is a pain in the ass.
He's an
He's a hardo, man. Like he's gonna even if you've got like a good hearty lead, like he's gonna leave his guys out there to just try and
Mhm.
carve into that lead. There's been so many Raptors games where it's come down to a finish where it's just like an absolute dogfight when the Celtics were up by like 12 or 14 with like 3 minutes left, and all of a sudden it's like, oh great, another full court press that we have to deal with. So like that's one of those teams, and again that ties into coaching. That's why I think Miami gives them such a problem, just because Eric Spoelstra is such a good coach,
Great
but
coach.
they're so old too. Like they're on the older side. Miami's got a lot of issues for themselves. I mean, they don't really have an easy path to improvement without moving off of some of this money. You heard rumors about maybe Kyle Lowry getting moved at the deadline. Couldn't
Really?
really find any takers for it. Yeah, there was just like whispers here and there. Nothing substantial. But ultimately, like these teams are still gonna they have history, they've got track record, even if you look beyond just this regular season. So none of those teams are going to be easy outs. If I'm the Celtics, I definitely would want to avoid the Knicks just because right now you're coming off of really, really bad losses to them, and there is that mental aspect. Now, I think the Knicks are going to be a problem for somebody in the first round. Um, currently, as currently constituted, they're 9.5 games back of first,
Mhm.
um, which is tied with the Nets, but they've got a record of 40 and 30. Nets have a record of 39-29. Nets sit in fifth. Knicks are sixth. So as it currently stands, the 76ers would face the Knicks in the first round. That's an interesting series. I don't know how that'll turn out, but at the very least, it's going to be interesting. For Boston, though, I think you kind of have to not worry about the teams that are in front of you, right? Like you kind of just have to play whoever you play. Ime Udoka preached the idea of nameless, faceless opponents. And when you're looking at just all of these teams that they could potentially face in the playoffs, you sort of have to have that same approach. I just worry about Miami for the exact reason that you said. where it's a physical team, that's a physical series, and I'm worried that they'll get burnt out in the first round unless they put them away quickly. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. And I know that you talked about this before with the ball handling on the offense. Um, I already talked about this on our last episode. You weren't able to be on it, but overall, like, how are you feeling about like the Celtics backcourt? How are you feeling about Derek White and the way that he's playing, what he's been bringing to the game so far?
Yeah, I mean, Derek White is bringing this ball of energy, like, and he has this like knack ability to finish at the rim. It's weird. I'm like, no, don't do that, and it goes in. So like he knows, or he's extra confident now. So maybe there was a little growing pain, trying to get comfortable, within the Boston, situation and things like that. But I'm telling you right now, he's a difference maker. So you have, you know, is it possible that he cracks that starting rotation if need be? I don't know, because I like Brogdon. I like him. He's a scorer off the bench. You got Brogdon, but again, you got two more ball handlers like coming off the bench. When you think about the starting five, if we go with our starting five, it's what Smart, Brown, Tatum, Horford. Who am I missing? Who would be the fourth?
Probably Rob at the 5, but that again, that
That's the
ties in the
double big though.
yeah, and that's what the lineup that they usually run, or at least they ran last year.
So who
But
would you
just
insert if you're gonna go the extra ball handler? It wouldn't be Brogdon. You need him for the six man. Would it be Derek White?
yeah,
Okay.
I've
So
kinda
that
I've kind of been talking about that. I wrote about it for Celtics blog. I talked about it with Adam on our last show, but starting Derek White and keeping Rob on the bench,
yeah,
operating
like
off the bench in that big role.
I mean, it does a couple of things. So it could be a gift and a curse, right? Because now you're starting Derek White, and you got to say to yourself, what is his role? Is he the two guard, which is what I'm hoping he is, and continue to let Marcus Smart run point. But as another ball handler, which is great. So if he has to bring the ball up, he can also distribute and make a play. And I think that's key for the Boston Celtics, getting the ball into the hands of the right person. If he sees there's some type of a mismatch, he also knows how to take advantage and finish, get to the rim and finish at the rim, and he's drawing contact, and he's shooting a mid-range, and he's getting more comfortable with his other shots. So it's great to have him. I think the curse would be with Derek White, and I'm gonna give you the gift and the curse with both. With Derek White would be, does it tire him out? Can he close out a game? Like those type of things. And that you need that. You need his energy to stay on 100 like the whole game, cuz he is somebody that can come back in if your team is doing, down and you need to go on a run. Like Derek Wright could be one of those players to ignite something. As far as Rob, like you want him in the game to start because you want him to protect the rim in the beginning. You want to keep them little guys out of the paint. You want to force them to shoot threes. He can close out on the perimeter. He can block shots. He can do all those things. So you kind of want him in there, but what happens when they have a different type of lineup and they're able to just get right past them? And next thing you know, he's in foul trouble. You can't really utilize him the way you want. I feel like the curse with Rob Williams is the more he starts, the more opportunities there are for him to get injured. And I don't need him injured going into these playoffs. We need him as healthy as can be
Hmm.
going into the playoffs. So it's a gift and a curse, whichever way you go. I prefer the five ball handlers on the court. I feel like we move the ball, we play better. It's a flow. That's what I prefer.
I tend to agree with you there too, and I think the thing that you hit the best was talking about Rob, and it just feels like the more time that you keep him out there, it's like you're shaving off like the percentage of how like healthy he is.
I
Like
know.
you reach like a certain threshold where it's like if you hit the 20-minute mark, you're risking him not being able to play the next day because he's got hamstring soreness or something like that. And it's not to say that I don't want him to start. It's just I want Rob to be as healthy as possible, and that might mean him coming off the bench. Derek White, outside of having that neck injury, not really ever shown up on the injury report for anything. He's been an
Mm.
Ironman. He's not missed a single game. And based on the Celtics history, I just want to I've said it before and I said it again, like, that is just so impressive. That is like Mikal Bridges levels of just, like, durability, and I think
Yeah,
that's awesome, like, that's something that you just haven't had, and based on Brogdon's injury history and Marcus Smart's clearly dealing with something too,
yeah,
with his
yeah,
ankle and stuff, that flared up, and he's talking about other injuries popping up too. You need to be able to lean on someone in that position, and I think that's what Derek White gives you. But besides that, is there anything else you want to cover today? I know that we've got a game coming up, so I don't want to hold you too long. And Lord knows NFL free agency is going on and everything,
it's
so I'm sure you've
crazy
got plenty
right.
of stuff to worry about too for the Niners coverage.
Yeah, it's super crazy. The NFL is going haywire right now. As far as Celtics though, man, listen, they just, upcoming game against the Houston Rockets, don't play down to their competition and go out there and be aggressive, start the game aggressive. I know they do take their foot off the gas. They kind of like to try some things and things like that, but stay aggressive, stay in control, stay in command, and then most importantly, win on the road. Celtics they have the best road win percentage out there, and they're a good road team. And remember, I said this on a few episodes ago. Remember, we kept losing. I'm like, why are we losing to the Knicks? Why are we losing to the Nets? Why are we losing these East Coast games? Like the games are in our division, the games we should win in our conference. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then it hit me. I was like, maybe they just need to get on the road and get the heck out of Dodge for a while and get back together. And remember, you said as long as they don't have some type of team meeting, we're good, right?
They've
Like
avoided it so far.
they've avoided it so far. So they're back to winning. They're back to moving the ball. They're back to playing Celtic style basketball. Let's go ahead and get this win.
Yeah, amen to that. With that, we're gonna wrap up today. Thank you for joining us. If you've gotten this far, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you're looking for content. Any ideas that you want to throw at us, we are open to them. So once again, this has been Vitamin C's, proud member of the CLNS Media Network, and sponsored and powered by FanDuel, America's #1 leading sports book and the official sportsbook sponsor of the CLNS Media Network. Take care, everybody. Hang in there, and until next time, cheers.
Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet.